This is my boat now.
You stole it, and everyone knows.
The red and blue lights sliced through the inky darkness of Chesapeake Bay like a knife through silk, turning a raucous party into a frozen tableau of shock and regret. Eleanor Vance stood rigid at the helm of the sleek cruiser, her knuckles white on the wheel, her heart hammering as if it might burst from her chest. The laughter that had echoed across the water just moments ago evaporated, replaced by the low growl of the Coast Guard cutter's engine drawing nearer. "Cut the engine and prepare to be boarded," boomed a voice over the loudspeaker, authoritative and unyielding. Eleanor's mind raced how had a simple night of fun spiraled into this nightmare. As the spotlight pinned her in place, illuminating her trembling form for all to see, she knew the answer lay in the choices she'd made, choices born of envy and entitlement. But to understand how Eleanor, the iron-fisted president of the Willow Creek Homeowners Association, ended up here, we must go back to where it all began. The Willow Creek neighborhood in Annapolis, Maryland, was the epitome of suburban Serenitia Place, where colonial-style homes with wraparound porches lined winding streets shaded by ancient oaks. Lawns were impeccably manicured, driveways gleamed with fresh sealant, and the community marina buzzed with the gentle clink of halyards against masts on breezy afternoons. It was the kind of enclave where families raised kids on tales of American history, given its proximity to the historic sites of the nation's capital region. But beneath the polished facade simmered the usual tensions of close-knit living, petty disputes over fence heights, parking spots, and holiday decorations that pushed the boundaries of good taste. At the helm of it all was Eleanor Vance, a 52-year-old real estate agent with a penchant for tailored suits and an unyielding sense of order. She'd moved to Willow Creek just 3 years ago, but her sharp wit and organizational prowess had propelled her to the presidency of the HOA in the last election. Neighbors whispered that she relished the power a bit too much, issuing fines for overgrown hedges with gleeful precision and dominating meetings with agendas that brooked no debate. Eleanor saw herself as the guardian of the community's standards, the one who kept everything running smoothly. But deep down, she craved the admiration that came with it, the nods of respect from those who feared crossing her. Across the cul-de-sac lived Theodore Ellis, a 45-year-old civil engineer of African-American descent who'd called Willow Creek home for over a decade. Theo was the steady type, quiet at HOA gatherings, but his contributions were always thoughtful and grounded. He worked long hours designing bridges and infrastructure projects that kept the region connected, and his weekends were sacred respites. His pride and joy was his Bayliner cruiser, a pristine 28-foot vessel docked at the community marina just a short walk from his house. Theo had saved for years to buy it, polishing its fiberglass hull every Saturday until it shone like a mirror under the Maryland sun. Fellow boaters often sought his advice on maintenance, and he'd share tips with a warm smile, fostering a sense of camaraderie on the docks. Theo's boat wasn't just a hobby. It was a symbol of his hard-earned success, a testament to perseverance in a world that hadn't always been fair. Growing up in a modest Baltimore neighborhood, he'd overcome barriers that many couldn't imagine, earning scholarships and climbing the professional ladder through sheer determination. The cruiser represented freedom, the open waters of Chesapeake Bay, where he could escape the stresses of deadlines and traffic, sometimes inviting a few close friends for a sunset cruise. That particular weekend, Theo was out of town, flying to Chicago for his sister's wedding. He'd locked up his house, checked the marina security cameras via his phone app, and left with peace of mind, trusting the tight-knit community to look after things in his absence. Eleanor had noticed Theo's boat many times from her bay window, watching him meticulously clean it with envy gnawing at her insides. "That's quite the indulgence," she'd once commented at a block party, her tone laced with a mix of awe and condescension. Theo had just smiled politely and changed the subject. But when word spread through the neighborhood grapevine that Theo would be gone for the weekend, a seed of temptation took root in Eleanor's mind. As HOA president, she had access to the marina's key codes and felt a certain invincibility. Why shouldn't she enjoy a taste of that luxury? It wasn't stealing, she rationalized, just borrowing for a few hours. No one would know. The push came from her longtime friend, Lydia Grant, a vivacious divorcee with a flair for adventure. Over Friday afternoon cocktails in Eleanor's sunroom, Lydia leaned in with a wicked grin. Why not take that beauty out for a spin? Theo's away, live a little, Ellie. You've been cooped up with those boring HOA spreadsheets. Imagine the wind in your hair, the bay at your command. Eleanor laughed it off at first, but the idea festered. She pictured herself at the helm, surrounded by admiring friends, the envy of the neighborhood shifting in her favor. By evening, she'd convinced herself it was harmless. She texted a small group. Lydia, her nephew Kyle, a cocky 28-year-old salesman, and two other socialites from her circle, Patricia and Victor, both known for chasing thrills without much thought to consequences. Bring some wine and snacks, Eleanor instructed. We'll head out after dusk, keep it low-key. But low-key was never Lydia's style. As they gathered in Eleanor's driveway that Saturday, excitement bubbled like champagne. Kyle cracked jokes about being pirates on the high seas, while Patricia adjusted her scarf against the evening chill. Victor hauled a cooler filled with beer and spirits. Eleanor led the way to the marina, her HOA key fob granting them seamless entry. The docks were quiet, save for the lapping of water against pilings and the distant hum of a crab boat returning from the bay. There it was, Theo's bayliner, tied securely, its lines taut and inviting. Eleanor hesitated for a split second, a flicker of guilt crossing her mind as she imagined Theo's careful hands tying those knots. But Lydia's nudge, "Come on, Captain Vance, show us how it's done," pushed her aboard. The group clambered on, giggling like teenagers. Eleanor fumbled with the ignition, her boating knowledge limited to a few outings years ago, but pride wouldn't let her admit it. Kyle untied the lines. Victor cranked up a portable speaker with upbeat tunes, and soon they were motoring away from the dock, the marina lights fading behind them. As the bayliner sliced through the calm waters of Chesapeake Bay, the group's energy soared. The bay stretched out like a vast, shimmering canvas under the stars, dotted with the silhouettes of distant sailboats and the twinkling lights of Annapolis on the horizon. Lydia danced on the deck, her laughter carrying over the waves. Kyle popped open beers, toasting to Eleanor's reign over land and sea. Patricia lounged in the cushioned seats, snapping selfies despite Eleanor's half-hearted protests. Victor turned the music louder, the bass thumping in rhythm with the engine's purr. For Eleanor, it was intoxicating, the power of command, the illusion of ownership. She gripped the wheel, feeling like the queen of her domain, far removed from the drudgery of HOA disputes. But Patricia, ever the cautious one, voiced a nagging doubt. "You sure about this, Ellie? Theo's not the type to take kindly to surprises." Eleanor waved her off. "Relax, Pat. It's just a joyride. He'll never know we'll have it back spotless." Yet even as she spoke, a knot formed in her stomach. The music drew stares from a passing fisherman, who shook his head disapprovingly. On shore, waterfront homeowners cracked open windows, frowning at the disturbance. Calls to the local Coast Guard station began trickling in, reports of a noisy vessel operating erratically without proper navigation lights. Unaware, the party escalated. Kyle dared Eleanor to push the throttle, sending the boat surging forward in exhilarating bursts. Lydia poured more wine, stories flowing as freely as the drinks. Victor recounted wild tales from his college days, egging everyone on. Eleanor laughed louder than she had in years, basking in the adulation. "To the HOA president who rules the waves," Kyle shouted, raising his bottle. But the cheers masked growing unease. Patricia's repeated glances at the shoreline, the way the boat wobbled under Eleanor's inexperienced handling. The bay, vast and unforgiving, amplified every sound, carrying their revelry back to land like an unwelcome echo. Then, the lights appeared, flashing red and blue, closing in fast. The Coast Guard cutter materialized from the shadows, its siren a brief wail that silenced the speaker mid-song. "United States Coast Guard, cut your engine immediately." The group froze. Eleanor's hands slipped on the wheel, her mind blanking. Kyle muttered, "Oh crap," tossing his beer overboard. Lydia hissed, "Just say it's yours, Ellie, act natural." But under the piercing spotlight, Eleanor's composure shattered. The officers pulled alongside, their faces stern in the harsh glow. "Good evening, folks. We've had complaints about noise and unsafe operation. Ma'am, are you the registered owner?" The lead officer's voice was calm but commanding, his eyes locking on Eleanor. She opened her mouth, but no words emerged. Her rehearsed lies evaporated. She stammered. The beam swept the deck, highlighting empty bottles and disheveled guests. Proof of registration, please, the officer pressed. Eleanor's knees buckled. She wasn't licensed, had no papers. The silence stretched, broken only by the water's slap against the hull. Finally, she mumbled, "It's my neighbor's. I'm just watching it for him." The officer's expression hardened. Operating without permission? With alcohol on board? That's a serious violation. Victor tried to interject with a nervous chuckle, no harm meant, officer, but was shut down. Stay seated, sir. This isn't a joke. As officers boarded, checking compartments and noting infractions, Eleanor's world crumbled. Her friends averted their eyes, complicit in the mess but unwilling to share the blame. The cutter's presence loomed, a symbol of authority she couldn't bully or finesse. The inspection dragged on, each violation piling up like stones in her gut. No proper lights, excessive noise, open containers. "You'll be cited, ma'am," the officer said, handing her a preliminary report. "The vessel will be returned to its owner. Expect follow-up." As the Coast Guard departed, leaving the bayliner bobbing in humiliation, the group sat in stunned quiet. Eleanor stared at the wheel, tears stinging her eyes. What had started as envy had morphed into catastrophe. Back at the marina, docking under watchful eyes of late-night boaters, whispers already began. "That's Ellis's boat, but that's not him driving." The fallout hit like a tidal wave. By morning, the marina manager called Theo in Chicago, leaving a voicemail that shattered his post-wedding glow. "Mr. Ellis, there's been an incident with your cruiser. Coast Guard involved. Give me a call." Theo's flight home was a blur of anger and disbelief. Meanwhile, Eleanor holed up in her house, ignoring texts. "Heard about your bay adventure, everything okay?" Gossip spread through Willow Creek like wildfire. Coffee chats at the community center, murmurs at the grocery store. "Can you believe Vance took Ellis's boat? Got busted by the Coast Guard." Some versions exaggerated. Arrests, towing, even hints of racial undertones in her entitlement, sparking heated debates among neighbors about privilege and respect. Theo arrived home Sunday evening, heading straight to the marina. The manager filled him in, his voice laced with sympathy. She claimed she was watching it. "Folks are talking." Theo's jaw clenched. His boat was more than property, it was his sanctuary, earned through years of overcoming systemic hurdles as a black man in engineering. He marched to Eleanor's door, knocking firmly. She answered, pale and disheveled. "Theo, he cut her off." "Why?" "Because you think your HOA badge gives you the right to my things." Her excuses tumbled out. "It was just fun. I didn't mean." But Theo's eyes bored into her. "You didn't borrow, you stole. And in front of the whole bay? You've dragged my name through the mud." Eleanor wilted under his gaze, the weight of her arrogance crushing her. "I'll make it right," she whispered. Theo shook his head. "You can't. Trust is broken, Eleanor. And in a place like this, that's everything." He left her standing there, the door clicking shut like a final judgment. The community buzzed louder. At the next HOA meeting, the clubhouse overflowed. Residents who'd tolerated Eleanor's iron rule now unleashed pent-up frustrations. "You embarrassed us all," one shouted. "Resign," another demanded. The vice president, a retired teacher named Harold, read resignation requests aloud. Eleanor, binder in hand, faced the crowd. "I made a grave error," she admitted, voice breaking. But interruptions flew. "You thought you were above us. What about Ellis? He deserved better." Under the barrage, Eleanor resigned, walking out amid murmurs of satisfaction. Her title stripped, she retreated into isolation, her once commanding presence reduced to a shadow. Neighbors pitted her from afar, but respect was gone. Theo, meanwhile, resumed his routines, polishing the cruiser with quiet dignity. People nodded approvingly as he said no fanfare, just earned esteem. Months later, Eleanor mustered the courage to approach him at the marina. "I'm truly sorry, Theo. I see now how wrong I was." He paused, rag in hand. "Apologies are words. Actions build character. You've got work to do." She nodded, turning away, the bay's vastness mirroring her newfound humility. In the end, Eleanor's fall was completely a cautionary tale etched into Willow Creek's lore. She remained in her home, but her influence vanished, replaced by a quieter life of reflection. Theo thrived, his trust in the community restored through its collective stand against entitlement. The incident highlighted how fragile power is without integrity, and how one act of overreach can unravel a carefully crafted facade. Boundaries matter, respect endures, and true authority stems from character, not titles. What do you think about this story? Share your opinions in the comments below, especially on themes of injustice and entitlement in everyday life. Do you believe such actions stem from deeper societal issues, like unchecked privilege? Take a stand and express your views. Let's discuss how we can foster more respect in our communities.